Hello everybody and welcome to another Twilight Zone retro review. Today it is Season 1, Episode 33, Mr. Bevis, written by Rod Serling and starring Orson Bean as Mr. Bevis and Henry Jones as J. Harry Hempstead. I'll just call him the Guardian Angel. What a name. A lot of people, I think, give Mr. Bevis a hard time. And maybe it's rightfully so, but for some reason, I just can't get myself to completely dislike this episode. No, it's not a Twilight Zone classic. It doesn't have any genius message behind it. But I really do like the simple message of this episode, and there are certain things about the episode I like. Now, one interesting thing about this episode was that Rod Serling actually had an idea to make it the pilot for a TV show. Now, come on, Rod. I don't dislike this episode, but I don't think this would have worked on a weekly basis. I respect you, Rod, but come on. So, okay. Anyway, we start with our main character, as we usually do, Mr. Bevis. And Rod Serling calls him an oddball in the opening narration. He says he's warm and kind, but that he's also a little bit goofy, basically, is what he says. And we see in these opening scenes he's fooling around. He falls down the steps. We also see that, because he's fooling around, that he likes children, and the people in the neighborhood like him. And as a matter of fact, he has a very old car, which doesn't seem to start very well, and the children help him to push it. And that's just the beginning of this exciting day. So we go to his office, his place of work next, and his boss is not happy. His desk is cluttered with all kinds of eccentric-looking things. And the boss says when Bevis comes in, he wants to see him. So Bevis does eventually come in, and the boss really gets on him and yells at him about a lot of things, and he gets fired. Mr. Bevis mentions this is the 6th job this year he's lost. So this guy does have some problems, keeping jobs. Then he goes outside and his car needs to be towed. So his rough day just continues. Then he goes home and finds out he's been evicted. So boy, things really aren't going too well. Then that makes him go to the bar to drink. I guess I can't really blame him in this case. And he starts to see a man in the mirror, or he thinks he sees him every time he turns around to look at the table. The man isn't there. So he's thinking that it's just, something in the drink. Well, it turns out there really is a man when he goes to the table, but only he can see him. This is the Guardian Angel character, and, that's what we find out. He tells Mr. Bevis, that he can change his day around and make it better, but that Mr. Bevis will have to change. Now, it's also mentioned that he has served other members of Mr. Bevis's family, which I thought was a cool and amusing touch. Not hilarious, but amusing. A lot of this episode is just light and amusing. So his day starts over, and I'm not going to go through every single thing, but I will recap some of what happens. This time he doesn't fall down the stairs. Now he has his rent money, so you can see things are changing for the better. In his financial situation. The kids outside ignore him. The people in the neighborhood just aren't as friendly to him. And he has a new car that really seems to work well. But you can tell Mr. Bevis isn't really comfortable with any of this stuff. He goes to his office now, and he's dressed much differently throughout this process. And there's nothing on his desk. He says it feels empty. The boss now loves him, and he basically gets a raise. But you can tell that Mr. Bevis doesn't really like any of this. So his guardian angel asks him, what he wants. And you can tell Bevis wants to go back to the old way of things. The angel basically agrees and says he likes members of the Bevis family that have big dreams. And, like things like that. So basically things do go back to the old way, and Mr. Bevis basically embraces all his old habits. And we also find out at the very end of the episode that his guardian angel is still with him as he helps him to get out of a parking ticket, basically. So the main message of this episode is basically, that you have to be yourself, and it's good to be yourself, and that material things are not the only important things that there are, which I think is a good, fun message, and I think it's a good reminder. for everyone that you can't really change who you are or you won't be happy. That's basically it. And like I said, I know that this episode is often given a hard time when it's studied, but it's a charming little episode. And no, it's not perfect. A lot of the attempts at humor don't work. I would say only about half of them maybe work. But the episode is pleasant and entertaining enough for me. But opinions may vary greatly on this one. Still, I think Mr. Bevis is okay overall, and I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. 2.5 out of 5 for Mr. Bevis. Thanks for watching.